And aloha to everybody. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much to the folks that have joined us in person here. We're also welcoming a live stream audience out there. So anybody watching out there, thank you so much for joining us here. Welcome. And as we approach Veterans Day, the first thing that I want to do is express my own deep appreciation and gratitude to our veterans, all of you, and your ohana for your service and for their service to our country. This is a personal expression of gratitude, but also on behalf of all of the people of Hawaii, we express our deep appreciation for your service. It's one thing to express appreciation and gratitude, which I think is important. I hope you agree that it's important, but it's another thing to also follow through with action on the benefits, on the promises, on the undertakings that we've made to you. And so with that expression of appreciation comes a commitment to action, and that's what this talk story is about this morning. This is another of my annual talk stories to report back to our veterans community and to listen to you in particular. I want to introduce some of my partners that are here with us today, and to those of you that are listening you can find these folks online. So I'm going to ask each of the folks that are here to just give us 1 minute on who you are and what you do, okay? Okay, all right, who wants to do this?
Thank you so much, Congressman. We are the Veterans Resource Center at Leeward Community College, your local college. We're here to help anyone with using education benefits from the VA.
Okay, thank you so much. And I have personally visited you, and it's an outstanding resource. And you have many, many veterans coming through to find their GI Bill and other educational benefits. And as you know, some of them are not even aware of what the benefits are. And you guys are great at helping them to find them and to solidify them. Thank you so much. Okay, what do we got here?
Good morning. We're from Catholic Charities Hawaii, and we have 3 veterans programs, specific programs. One is our SSVF Supportive Services for Veteran Families. That's our homeless veteran program. We also have a mental health program, which is called the SSG Fox Suicide Prevention Grant Program. And then our third one is legal services for homeless veterans. So we can help pay for your attorney's fees.
Okay, thank you so much for your service. These are critical veterans programs. I'll talk more about them in the course of this. Okay, and then we're going to go back here. Hello, sir. Who are you and what are you?
Josh Knisley. I'm the president of the Veterans Association of Real Estate Professionals. So our mission is to educate veterans and active duty service members on their VA home loan benefit, which is not well understood, and also financial counseling and advocating for bills to be passed to make the VA home loan benefit more beneficial.
And this is another incredibly important program for our veterans that actually, in my experience, a lot of veterans don't know about. And you and your organization specialize in getting veterans signed up with their benefits for home loans, and I think you do a real service. Okay, thank you. And who wants to take this back here?
Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm with the City and County of Honolulu, and we have a couple of different veteran-specific programs located within our American Job Center Hawaii. So we have our Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program. Harry and Robin are here for that today, but we also have the Workforce Development Division has their Jobs for Veterans State Grant, which is also located in the same office. And then we have a variety of other employment and training programs that offer priority of service to veterans, although they're not veteran-specific programs.
Okay, and thank you so much for your service. And I would say one thing that aside from your programs that you're running and carrying out for our veterans, I have great partners in the city and county and the state who all run simultaneously and parallel and in partnership with me and the Veterans Administration, our veterans programs to try to provide an integrated approach. So thanks for being here. Anybody that wants to check in with them or anybody that is watching in online, these folks are all online, and if you want to find them and can't, call my office and we will help you do that. Okay, a couple of things. First of all, I didn't introduce myself. I'm U.S. Representative Ed Case. I represent the 1st Congressional District of Hawaii, which is the city of Honolulu, really, all the way from Makapu'u to Kapolei to Mililani. That's my kuleana, but I represent, as does my partner, Jill Tokuda, at the moment. We represent the entire state of Hawaii, so nobody stands on ceremony in terms of district lines here. We're all 4 of us, including Senator Schatz and Hirono, dedicated to our veterans. I do have my staff, all of my staff in Honolulu here with me today, all of whom are available to assist you. I've got, let's see, going around the room, I've got Nestor Garcia here, Kira Empting, I've got Keikoa Kaluhiva, I have Tristan Fujimoto in the back there, and Ken Ahiga, who is with my office here. And please go up to any one of them. They will give you their card for a straight shot into my office. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to update you for about 20 minutes or so. I usually go over a little bit, apologies for that, on what's going on in my world in the veterans area. And then I want to turn this over to you, because this is far more about listening to you, understanding what your concerns are, and seeing where we can help. Now, you're all veterans. You're all veterans of our military. And so you understand the importance of mission. You understand the importance of the clarity of the mission. If the mission is vague, it will fail. If the mission is clear and is implemented properly, it will most likely succeed. And so I want to tell you what I think my mission is. I've got 3 parts to my mission of representing our Hawaii in Congress. The first part of my mission is what the Constitution says my mission is, which is to represent my district and my state in making decisions for our country. And so these are the big picture decisions: war and peace, Social Security, overall Veterans Administration policy. And my job is to participate with my colleagues in Congress in making those decisions. So that's the first part of my mission. That covers the entire country. The second part of my mission is more specific to our Hawaii, and that is to make sure that our federal government is helping our Hawaii specifically. And that comes in a lot of ways, shapes, and forms. But what it really amounts to at the end of the day is making sure that our federal government programs are working for Hawaii, especially given that we're so unique in many different ways, and to make sure that that is all working. And then the final part of my job, which I think is especially important to our veterans community, because we take up a lot of time on this part of our mission with our veterans, and that is to help you with your individual needs. Many of you have been to my office already for needs that you have where you're just not getting your answers from the VA, where you need to get a record somewhere to finish off your claim, whatever it might be. And I'll get into that a little bit more. I use a lot of tools at my disposal in my congressional office to achieve all 3 parts of this mission. But the biggest tool that I have is the Appropriations Committee. I've served on the Appropriations Committee now for 7 years. The Appropriations Committee is the committee in Congress that does all federal funding. And so we do about $1.7 trillion of federal funding per year, and that's discretionary, meaning we actually have to appropriate it every year. There is also mandatory funding out there that we oversee. Mandatory is veterans benefits, for example, or Social Security benefits. It's going to happen whether we appropriate it or not. So it's a big amount of money. It's a big responsibility. I serve for 4 years on the Veterans Affairs Subcommittee of our Appropriations Committee, so directly responsible for federal funding of our veterans and oversight. I switched a couple of years ago over to the Defense Subcommittee and Homeland Security Subcommittee. The Defense Subcommittee is the subcommittee that oversees all of our federal funding for defense and for our intelligence community as well. Half the federal budget is there. It gives me a lot of opportunities still to focus very much on our military, obviously, and on our veterans. I already spoke to this, but my efforts are not mine alone. I've got partners in Congress that I work with on both sides of the aisle to achieve what I need to achieve for our veterans. I clearly act with my colleagues in the congressional delegation, which is a very close and tight-knit delegation, especially on veterans affairs. And then finally, as I've already mentioned, I have great partners here in Hawaii, both the state of Hawaii, the city and county of Honolulu in my case, and then finally your veteran services organizations with whom I meet very regularly both here and in Washington, D.C. And I'm always willing to have these meetings with either your veteran services organizations and or with you personally as I can and as my schedule back here permits, which, by the way, it does permit. So I meet with a lot of folks along the way. Our veterans population in Hawaii, some people are not fully focused on this, so I'm going to just kind of give you some of the overall statistics and the reasons that I worry in particular about certain things. We have somewhere in the range of 112, 113,000 veterans in Hawaii today. Sometimes I think that number is a little low, to be honest. I think it's more like about 120,000. I think still there are some veterans that are not fully accounted for throughout our Hawaii. And of course, we also have your families who are part of your community, part of the concern that I have for our veterans. And that's about 9% of our overall population, which is higher than the rest of the country at around 6%. So to start with, we have more veterans pro rata per our population than most of the rest of the country, and that adds pressures to veterans' benefits along the way. We have a greater percentage of women veterans than virtually every other part of the country. That comes as a surprise to some people, but women veterans, of course, have their own specific concerns, and that percentage is increasing, by the way, as we get into more of a military that has more women in it, and as they come out to be veterans, that part of our veteran community is going to expand. We have a younger veterans community than much of the rest of the country, especially in the 18 to 34 category, because we do have folks that are, enlisting early and often here in Hawaii, and then coming out into our veterans community. In terms of the groups that we focus on, and this makes a difference in terms of how we deliver benefits, our largest community, of course, is the Gulf War, followed by Vietnam, followed by Korea, and we, of course, still have some of the greatest generation of World War II vets with us that need particular help. We have a large VA presence here in Hawaii, and by the way, in Hawaii we operate beyond Hawaii as well, so we oversee and supervise the rest of the Pacific as well. We've got about 26 VA facilities, about 50,000, so almost half of our veterans are enrolled in VA healthcare, and of course that's the major issue. We've got about $1.2 billion comes into Hawaii every year for veterans in one way, shape, or form. Mandatory benefits, these discretionary programs that I've already talked about. And so that's our ohana here. That's our veterans ohana. Now it's like the rest of the country in many, many ways, but it's not like the rest of the country in very unique ways. Women, I already talked about, our ethnic mix of veterans adds a level of complexity to how we deliver services, how we deliver healthcare in particular, since we know that we have different health disparities depending on ethnicity, and we have to acknowledge that and address it. I already talked about women that need. We have a very urban rural community. We have veterans that are serviced on very small islands like Lanai and Molokai, which is a real challenge to service them. And then we have veterans right here in urban Honolulu as well, which has its own challenges. So there's lots of unique parts of our community here. Before I get into veteran-specific issues, I want to talk about the big picture of our country today and where it is. And I don't want to spend a lot of time here. Veterans, like the rest of our community, come in all sizes and shapes in terms of your politics. You're going to have some people that are very strong supporters of the president, some very strongly opposed, and a lot somewhere in between. And in a very, very divided and polarized country, which represents itself as a divided and polarized Congress, by the way, there are very few issues where we are still holding on to a strong bipartisan consensus, and veterans is one of them. We are able, because of our mutual commitment to our veterans across the country, we are still able to hold on to this. I don't want to over-politicize this meeting or any other conversation about our veterans. We need to get the job done. However, we obviously have some politics going on in our country, and I'm going to just go to this. I'm happy to talk more about this in questions, but I'd much rather that in our talk story today we focus on exactly what we can do for our veterans. Clearly, this administration, since it came into office, has, whether you like it or not, has been highly disruptive to our country. And this has affected our Veterans Administration and our veterans programs. This started at the beginning of this year with the effort to disrupt and reduce in much of the federal government personnel, the DOGE effort. And so in the first 3 to 6 months of this year, we saw tremendous disruption going on in the Veterans Administration. We saw people getting laid off, furloughed, offered an exit from their jobs. We saw significant reductions in staff. We saw attempts to reduce claims in some cases that had to be curbed in court and were curbed in court. And so there's a very clear the other trend that we saw and we're still seeing in the veterans community is a movement towards privatizing services, taking them out of the Veterans Administration itself and putting it into kind of a for-profit private sector model, which I disagree with, by the way, as a matter of policy and delivery of services. And so these are the things that we are dealing with in Washington: a disrupted VA, a reduced staffing, in many cases demoralized staff, and we've got to all work through this in order to deliver for our veterans. And this is going to be a difficult and continue to be a difficult debate. The second thing I want to say in the big picture is, obviously we're sitting here in the middle of a tragic, terrible, avoidable, unnecessary, solvable federal government shutdown, which is now in its 39th day, I think we are, the longest shutdown in our history. And this is clearly having an impact on the VA and on our veterans. And I really want to hear from you on this subject in particular, because although the Veterans Administration, and the most immediate impact, obviously, is to our federal employees. And here in Hawaii, we have about 2,100 to 2,200, depending on how you count them, people that are employed, our own ohana, that are employed by the Veterans Administration for one thing or another. Now, that breaks down into roughly 1,800 to 1,900 in the Veterans Health Administration, so health care delivery, as you would expect. But there are also a couple hundred in the cemetery side, the veterans cemeteries. And then there's a number that are here just to manage the delivery of benefits. Now, fortunately, under these circumstances, most of our veterans, we have somewhere around 8 or 9% of that total 2,200 that have been furloughed. So they're furloughed, they're not being paid. And they're in a world of hurt right now. Right after this, I'm going to go down to Kehi Lagoon and join your Special Veterans Food Assistance Drive to help our veterans in particular who are really hurting from this shutdown. But most of our VA employees are getting paid, but that's because their payment was pre-funded, pre-appropriated. So that's good for them. But the morale is tough, and of course they're dealing with a reduction in their overall staffing, and so that's putting great pressure on them. So we obviously need to get that shutdown done. Happy to talk about that a little bit more. Let me turn back now to specific veterans issues, and there are many issues out there that we could talk about, but I want to highlight just a few that are of importance to me, and which I pursue, and by the way, a lot of which I described in the mailer that I sent out to you. If you didn't get that mailer, we've got extra copies outside. So number one issue, clearly, from my perspective, maintain and increase VA funding overall. If we don't have the money, we can't deliver the programs. Simple as that. And what we have to do then is to advocate in a very tight budget environment where there are cuts going on all over the federal government. We have to maintain and increase VA funding. We fund the Veterans Administration overall about $150 billion a year. And every year I fight very hard in appropriations to maintain and increase that amount against, by the way, people that want to attack it. Now again, most of that is health related, about 131 billion. The remainder to the rest of our VA programs. But that's really critical, and that's healthcare across the board, but especially some very specific areas that are very critical for us. And we spoke about some of these when we introduced our folks here. One would be mental health care and suicide prevention, which is of course such a challenge for our veterans, and we definitely need to continue the efforts we have to fully fund those programs. We spoke about homeless assistance and housing, which are critical, substance disorder treatments. All of these are subsets, I suppose I would say, of our veterans healthcare delivery that we have to fund in our appropriations process. We also try to make sure that our veterans facilities are all fully funded and functioning. And of course, we've got some brand new facilities here that I think we should all be very proud of, but we got to make sure that they actually work. And so we'll talk a little bit about that later on. We clearly have to continue to fund the PACT Act, which is our landmark effort of a couple of years ago on a bipartisan basis to take care of the folks that were exposed to toxic substances in the wars of the last decades. That's unfinished business. If you have any question yet about whether you're eligible, we can help you with that. We had record numbers of people sign up, far more than we expected, than we projected when we passed the PACT Act. And we had to come back and supplement that to expand the benefits that were just, in my view, unfairly not expanded as far as they should have been to start with. But the funding has had to follow that as well. And that has put a strain on the budget, but we have funded the PACT Act. So that's clearly on my mind. I spoke again a little bit earlier about the shutdown overall, but there's clearly some impacts going on. So the healthcare side of it, although technically not impacted since the employees are on the job and those are being funded, still the reductions in staffing, my understanding is, and you can tell me, is that some of the appointment times are lagging significantly. Some of the opportunities to get quick service are lagging, sometimes even getting your questions answered, and that's what I want to hear from you about. We do have significant curtailment of some of the services, for example, headstones and maintaining grounds at our great VA national cemeteries throughout the state. We have the GI Bill hotline, which is closed. We have the resources over here to try to supplement that. Excuse me. And there are other things that are disrupted. But the guts of VA benefits on the healthcare side should still be flowing. But I'm, again, very, very eager to hear what you have to say about that. Again, I spoke a little bit about the PACT Act. I want to emphasize that. Please call our office if you have any questions on the PACT Act. I spoke about women's veterans, which is an area that I particularly try to focus on because of not only its impact on our country, but especially on the impact here in Hawaii. We are still trying to design and implement very specialized programs at women's. Sorry, I'm just got a little bit of a cough. I got my water. In the area of women. So we definitely want to hear from anybody that is concerned about our women's programs. I talked about our VA facilities. We obviously just opened our state veterans home in Kapolei, which I visited just a couple of months ago. Fantastic facility, which was partly funded by our federal government, our delegation, including me. Worked really hard to get that open. And I know that they would welcome any questions directly. We can put you in touch with them. It's our second home in Hawaii. We're trying to plan for a third home right now, especially on Maui. Of course, the Daniel Akaka VA clinic in Kalaeloa, which doubled the capacity of our healthcare system, opened earlier last year. I visited them as well again, and I'd be eager to hear your experiences with that. All reports are pretty good so far. Other issues that I'm addressing in one way or another that I'm going to kind of skip over here, I can go back to any of these. We've got Tripler. Tripler servicing our active military as well as our veterans is nearing end of life. In fact, by any accounting, it is well over end of life. And it needs to be either majorly refurbished or replaced. And we're going through a very difficult analysis of what we should do with Tripler right now, because either way, it's very expensive. The guts of Tripler are remarkably strong, but the functionality of Tripler is not working, especially the parking. That's been an issue for, I see chuckles around the room, but the parking up at Tripler has been a real problem that we've been working on. We have very specific issues in terms of how our VA healthcare and other benefits impact our ethnic mix. I talked about this earlier, and so I spend a lot of time trying to get this right. Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders. In all of these areas, we far surpass the rest of the nation in terms of actual enlistment in the military, as well as in our veterans communities. Here in Hawaii, we have sponsored and I have funded every year through appropriations a center at the University of Hawaii to focus on this particular part of our veterans community and their particular issues and how we can improve the delivery of services to very specific and tailored needs. Veterans housing is a big issue. HUD-VASH program. We always try to maintain HUD-VASH. This is obviously an issue with all of our veterans, together with all of us in Hawaii, by the way, so nobody is accepted from this. But we have very specific veterans housing issues to help veterans. And the challenge there is maintaining them, making them work in Hawaii in a very different environment than, say, a city on the mainland where the prices of housing are 1/4 of what they are here, both rental and buying, and funding those programs. And so we spend a lot of time there. Veteran cemeteries is something very much on my mind right now because Punch Bowl is running out. And it's time for us to start to plan for the next national cemetery in Hawaii. We are doing that. I'm about to introduce a bill in Congress that will start that process. It's going to be a long process. It ain't going to get done while I'm still in Congress. It's a long time out, but we've at least got to start down the road to set that up for when we're going to really need it. We talked about veterans legal services over here. I spent a lot of time trying to make sure our veterans have access to legal services, including representation in terms of some pretty complicated claims issues sometimes, and adjudications of disability. We've got some folks here, we've helped with that. And so this is an area that I also focus on. Although I don't represent the rural part of Hawaii, I used to represent it 2002 to 2007, very familiar with the challenges of delivery of veteran services to our rural parts of our country, of our state. And so I work a lot with, especially with Rep. Tokuda on those issues. We worry a lot about our Pacific Islands ohana in places like Guam and American Samoa, the Northern Mariana Islands. We also have one of the highest rates of enlistment of anywhere in our country from what we call the compact states. So these are the states of the countries of Palau, Federated States of Micronesia, and the Marshall Islands. These are in free association with our country, so they are not part of our country, but we are committed to each other in terms of the national defense. And one of the areas that is particularly important there is they do enlist in our armed services disproportionately high. We need to deliver back to them the same veterans benefits that we here in Hawaii and elsewhere enjoy. And finally, the area that I know is important to a lot of you is what we call the Major Richard Starr Act. And this is an act for concurrent receipt for combat disabled retirees, veterans, of both disability benefits as well as regular veterans benefits. Right now they're offset, and that's unfair. And so we are trying to make sure that if you earned your benefits, you get your benefits. And that's been a struggle, but I think it's one that we're eventually going to prevail in. Those are some of the big picture issues. Now let me turn. So I talked a little bit about the first part of my mission, some of the national issues that I'm worrying about in terms of our veterans, funding, programs, delivery, consistency, and then I talked a little bit about helping Hawaii. So some of our specific needs in Hawaii that arise because of our specific circumstances here in Hawaii. Now let me talk about the third part of my mission, which is individual constituent services. And again, I would say that these are areas that are particularly important to me, and where we can especially help you. I probably get about 40% of my overall constituent services requests are veterans related. And so we definitely have to continue in this area. It's very straightforward how you get into my office. You write or call us, and you say, I've got an individual issue. And my Honolulu staff who are with me will directly help you however we can. Now, we can't go out there and guarantee a result, so we can't, overturn some judge's ruling on whatever it might be. But we can certainly get you an answer, and we can certainly highlight your issue to make sure you don't get lost. We can certainly try to penetrate the bureaucracy of the Veterans Administration to get you the services that you need and deserve. And so please remember, if you have an issue on your vet's benefits or anything else for that matter, try our office. We might be able to help you. Okay, I don't know what time it is. I think I went 20 minutes or 25 minutes. Sorry about that. At this point, I'm simply going to kind of stop here because I've given you a big picture of what I'd like to share with you. I think I would leave you with maybe a couple of big picture thoughts. Number one, I completely value your partnership. I can't do this job in Washington, D.C., where I hang for 6 to 7 months a year out of Hawaii. I can't do this job unless I know and I'm comfortable with what the issues are, what the needs are, and how I can help. And for that, I rely on you to partner with me, not only to let me know what's going on with our vets and how to fix them, but also to deliver the services. How do you actually then implement a solution? I have to work with my partners. Maybe it's a little bit federal, maybe it's a little bit state, maybe it's a little bit veteran services organizations. And I do this consistently. So I really value our partnership. And the only way a partnership works is by partners talking to each other and communicating with each other and helping each other. And so that's been a great partnership for me for my 11 years in Congress at this point. Number two, big picture, whatever your question is about your veteran status, about your benefits, about national issues, about how national policy is impacting us in Hawaii, or about your own individual issues, we want to hear from you about that because we're committed to deliver what we promised to deliver to you. And we want to be able to help you with that. And so please don't consider any question not an appropriate question. Don't consider any need too manini to deal with. We are here to help, and we want to hear from you. Resources, finally, how to get into my office, how to understand what I'm doing. Best way overall, case.house.gov. Case.house.gov. On that, you'll have way more information than you ever want to know about who I am, what I'm doing, what my votes are, what my bills are, what our issues are in terms of appropriations, everything. So take a look at case.house.gov. That's also the best way to communicate back to me because it has the phone number, it's got a ready email back to us. Set up a meeting with my Honolulu office if you'd like to do it in person, which we welcome. We do have a Honolulu office, by the way. It's downtown Honolulu. Please use that. If you don't use, internet and go on websites, you can call us. You can call us anyway if you want. If you're more comfortable. All right. With that, I'm going to stop suddenly because I suspect I went on too long, and I would love to hear from you. I think we've got another mic here. Oh, here we go. Kenna has a mic, and if you just flag her down and let me know what you'd like to ask me or talk about. And again, this doesn't have to be limited to veterans organizations, veterans issues. Although I do want to cover veterans issues, but if you have anything else you want to talk about, I'm happy to do that. Oh, here we go.
Hello, sir. I'm
Hello.
Gary Chamberlain. I'm a Army vet, Air Force retired. My question has to do, I'd really like to know your views on how you think the experiment of allowing government workers who are public servants have operated with a union. Because unions typically get into the political realm.
Mhm.
And our public servants should be, along with the VA and all of them, should be operating to serve the public.
Sure.
So I'd just like to have your
Yeah.
view on it.
I think, first of all, sir, I would say I support unions on balance. I think unions are, on balance, good for our country and good for our workers. And so I support the right of workers to form unions, to bargain collectively on wages, hours, working conditions. And I support the right of unions to organize and bargain collectively inside the federal government in general. Now, not all federal employees should be eligible to join a union, but I believe that many should be. And so I'm, in general, a supporter of that. Now, union members, like anybody else, are subject to the Hatch Act and to related laws that basically try to keep the politics out of the delivery of services in the Veterans Administration. Do union members advocate, and their unions advocate for their concerns, for their needs, outside of the Hatch Act, outside of politicizing the actual delivery of the services? Yes, and I have no problem with that. Just as I think any employee should be able to advocate for concerns about employment. So, for example, when this administration attempted to significantly reduce federal employment by federal employees, line employees, through a process that I considered to be illegal because they were not following the procedures for reducing federal government employment risks. The unions representing their employees sued the administration. Now, is that appropriate? Yes, I think it is appropriate. Those employees should have the rights. And if they do it collectively, then they should be able to do it collectively. So I guess my answer to you is I don't think that the issues that perhaps we're dealing with here are related to the fact that our federal employees are represented by unions. The unions right now, for example, in the middle of this federal government shutdown, one of the issues that I have a real problem with is that this administration has at least come very close to stating that they will object to paying back pay to workers who are now not being paid, which I think is against the law, because we passed a law in 2019 saying that if you're not getting paid because of a federal government shutdown, whether you're working because you're essential or because you're furloughed, you're going to get paid when it's not your fault. You're not going to be penalized for that. We passed that law. I think it's the right law. And yet the administration has kind of hinted they might not do that for some of those employees. I think that's inappropriate. Should they be able to take that to court individually or through a union? I think they should be. And so that they are able, through a common effort, because that's what a union is, should they be able to do that? I think they should. Now, again, I don't believe in politicizing the delivery of federal services by anybody. And so if that's happening at all, where a union is advocating its members, well, only deliver these services to, favored political perspective and not to another, that should not happen at all. But I'm really not aware of that having happened too much to the union. Do they advocate? They absolutely do. So
Obviously, we are going to agree to disagree.
okay, fair enough. Some people, and you may be one of them, just don't believe that maybe you don't have a problem with unions overall, but you don't think they should be in state or federal government employment situations. And that's a debate we've been having for a long time. I just maybe come down on a different side than you.
It all boils down to loyalty. Where is the employee's loyalty? If you're a public service, by definition, it's supposed to be public.
Correct, and I agree.
But if your loyalty is more toward whatever direction your union goes to.
Where's the microphone? I just want to make sure we capture your comments for our public people. Yeah, I think that
I think we're at the end. I mean,
yeah,
we're not.
no, well, first of all, I agree with you that a federal government's workers' loyalty is to his or her job and to the federal government. So I totally agree with you on that. So if a union is getting in the way of that loyalty, we're on the same page. But I just don't think the solution is not to have unions. But you can go ahead and have the last
I
one.
can remember when they were talking about trying to unionize the military.
Well, okay, well, that's a different story, right?
Yeah, it
I
is.
don't believe that the military should be unionized. And again, I don't believe that that collective bargaining and unionization is appropriate for all federal employees. And in fact, many federal employees are not eligible to join unions for that exact reasons. And I think the military is one of them.
Thank you.
Hey, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hello, Kato. My name is Jeremy Ewan, Army Navy 95 to 06. Most recently, I was able to catch you in the rear. We got to talk a little bit, but I guess mine's more of a concern about the most recent attacks. Like the Washington Post had an article stipulating they were targeting like all the fraud from veterans, which I think represented 0.01% of the total population. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I'm
So most recently, the Washington Post article about the veterans claims and fraud, but they were talking about the individuals, which represents like 0.01%. And it was a very targeted article by the Washington Post. The VFW national president spoke out about it. Several other veterans organizations spoke out about it. I know I, for one, don't appreciate that in any way, shape, or form. You know, individuals, veterans, we're really unique because our service can be so random and horrifying all at the same time. You have an individual who goes in, does 4 years, sees 3 years of combat. You have an individual who goes in, maybe do 10, 12 years, maybe didn't see a lot of combat. So it's so random, but the sacrifices were made, you know, and I know I didn't really appreciate that. But I just wanted to, your take on that particular one and the recent ones by, you know, not so much the media, but the VA Secretary Collins' attempt to stop the claims process.
Yeah. So I'm not going to defend any kind of waste, fraud, and abuse anywhere in the federal government. And there's really no excuse for that. I don't think that there's some reason in parts of the federal government to accept or tolerate it more than other parts of the federal government. We always have to deal with some level of attempts at waste, fraud, and abuse in our federal government, any government. Fraud is an issue in many of our programs, and I do believe you, and I think this is actually demonstrated, you know, empirically, right? So studies that you will find pretty low rates of fraud in the VA system. Not that it ain't there; it is there. It's just that it's not, you know, something that is overwhelming the system. And of course, we should get rid of all of that, and we should obviously operate our federal dollars efficiently, so we're not wasting. And obviously, we should not be, you know, abusing systems. My issue is that that concept has been used by some to justify reductions in our federal government that don't have anything to do with waste, fraud, and abuse. They have to do with a legitimate policy disagreement about how big our federal government should be and about the number of services our federal government should deliver. That's fair game. We've been arguing over that for 250 years. I can have that debate with anybody. Okay, so let's talk about the Veterans Administration. Are all these programs necessary? Are they all being operated efficiently? What levels of fraud are in there? Should we expand or curtail them? Should we increase or decrease funding? Should we add conditions on those programs? That's a fair game policy debate, but don't kind of, you know, set out to substantially curtail the Veterans Administration and call it waste, fraud, and abuse. That's not okay with me. I disagree with the Secretary about the reduction in claims, or the restriction in claims. Again, you want to have the discussion about whether we should have those programs and whether they're being operated efficiently, but don't like start to cut off veterans from their own claims for legitimate programs as they exist today, just because you You want to reduce it? I'm gonna go out of order here, sir. I just we were talking earlier. I'm going to embarrass you here, but you're celebrating you're actually celebrating two special anniversaries today. You care to share it with everybody?
Well, sure. I'm a retired command sergeant major. I joined the Army the 8th of November in 1961. I retired in the 8th of November in 1991, 30 years, and then I served 4 years as a driver for the VA, which was a Palatine. And
So
that's it.
you were telling me, so obviously the 8th of November, so today, so you are you served you enlisted at 17, I think you were telling me.
Yes, sir.
38 years ago, is that right? And you took it 30 years to the day. So you're celebrating that anniversary of retiring as well, and you were telling me earlier that you spent your retirement years volunteering for
Yes, sir.
veterans as well. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight that
Right.
since you were celebrating a birthday of sorts.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service and your service was Vietnam, right? 2 years in Vietnam in airborne. I think you were telling us. Yeah. So thank you so much. Hi.
Yeah, good morning, sir. I'm Pete Tingstrom. I'm a 30-year Army retiree. Just some comments from your opening statements and then a question. First, you mentioned some of the disruptions, the DOGE thing. I actually think that's a good thing. I've seen fraud, waste, and abuse all through my time in the military and going to the VA. And so $14 billion of fraud, waste, and abuse, you just made a comment yourself that that's a good thing, that we shouldn't have that kind of stuff. When it comes to $841 billion of improper payments out through all the different organizations. So those are great finds for me. To me, that's not a big deal. When I went to the Kaka Center, a brand new center, I sat there in the waiting line for my appointment, and this lady was sitting there on her cell phone with nobody around there, no one there for like 40 minutes. To me, that's fraud, waste, and abuse. And internal taking care of people. Privatizing has been a good thing, I think. I enjoy going to the VA when I can get to the VA, but the act that allowed us to go see the privatized folks through Care in the Community, to me has been a good thing. I can get an appointment that day if I'm not feeling good. And the service and support that I've received here in Hawaii has been outstanding. Now, I've been a national vice president of an organization where the support we get in Hawaii is far better, I think, than a lot of other places around the United States. So we're very fortunate here in this state with the services that we have, especially here on Oahu. Maybe some of the other islands, not so much. But the timeliness of the VAs is really slow when it comes to authorizations, when it comes to getting appointments for a primary care manager, really bad. Shutdown. The shutdown, talking about supporting veterans and supporting our guys, that a lot of veterans are government service employees working at the federal level. And it's been disgusting watching both sides and all the different going back and forth when the senators, the House passed it, getting up to the Senate, and it's the Senate Democrats that are holding it hostage. Not some big bill that they want to add and throw all these other things when there's time to talk about all that. Get the guys back to work. So we would hope your support to talk to Mazie and Brian to get them to vote. You had a couple of Democrats, or at least one Fetterman, supporting that. Get the guys back to work. The Daniel Kaka, like I said, is going really well. The one thing that you could help us more at the state level, it's been brought up about vehicle registrations on the active duty side.
Oh, yeah.
You get one vehicle that is, costs you $25, you pay for the plate type of thing, but you're exempt. It'd be great to see veterans here have at least one vehicle exempt from the $500-600 registration fee. And it's been talked about, but I haven't seen much movement on it.
Okay, thank you so much. So I hope I answered the waste, fraud, and abuse question. I don't accept waste, fraud, and abuse. I don't want it to be used for other reasons. I want a policy debate about efficiency, operation of programs, size of programs, and cost of programs. And I'm not going to defend, any amount of waste, fraud, and abuse. So that's number one. Number two, in terms of the shutdown, I want to get it over with. The problem here, and hey, both sides have been going back and forth for 38 days now. One side, which you represented,
Clean CR.
Clean CR. The other side, let's take care of 40 million Americans whose health care is in mortal danger. And we need to do it both. And you know what? We can do them both, and we should do them both. Now, the House did pass it. I opposed it because I didn't think the CR was clean, first of all. There's a lot of conditions in there. It's a 91-page CR, right? I could give it to you. And number two, I felt that we should take care of 40 million Americans with healthcare critical needs. And so that's why I voted no on it. Now, I've been working since then with my fellow travelers, as I put it, in Congress on both sides of the aisle, to come up with a solution that's going to work. And I think that the solution that we've talked about is going to be the solution that has to happen, which is a bipartisan solution. The Senate's got its rules. And, you know, the president wants to change those rules. But the rules are the rules right now. And 14 times now, they haven't passed the House version. So that ought to tell you that it's time to compromise. And it's frustrating to me why they haven't done that. And that's democracy. That's the system.
Right, but over a month ago, could have had it passed with what was already approved and cleared to get those guys back to work, and then have time to talk with the bipartisan bill to help with healthcare and those concerns.
Yeah, well,
right now, you're using, not you, the Senate, you need 60. A lot of people, I hear the Democratic side all the time, and say, oh, it's the president, the House and Senate, it's all run by the Republicans. You need 60 votes, and you need Democrats to come over to that side and I'd love to hear, because I haven't heard what stuff is not clean in the clean CR. I'd love to hear your perspective on that. I don't have time to read 91 pages.
There are a lot of little conditions in there that are problematic, and it's more what it doesn't cover. It doesn't cover very specific things that we should be covering right now to make appropriations flow smoothly. And so, you know, it ain't a one-page bill that just says put funding off for 2 months while we get our appropriations done, which is what a clean CR is. Okay, well, enough said on this. In terms of, I'm happy to, privatization. I'm not opposed to all privatization. I think it can work. And I think that in very specific situations, it has to work that way. And I'll give you an example from our Hawaii. We have a big state with many rural parts of our state. Now, if you're going to try to take the VA healthcare system and plop it down in the middle of southern Big Island, that ain't going to work too well, right? You can't afford it. You don't have the critical mass. You don't have a lot of things. But my problem is a movement towards privatizing most of the VA healthcare system, which I don't think is going to result in better care for our veterans. And I don't think it's going to be less expensive. And I frankly don't think it's going to be more efficient either. Can it work in situations? Absolutely. I'm not ruling it out altogether. But I do resist an effort to completely take the VA healthcare system, which is working.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's advocating for that.
Okay.
Just the care in the community has been a great program to supplement the VA because of lack of funding
Correct.
and personnel
Correct.
to get in for appointments. That's
Right.
all.
No, I totally agree with you. So VA healthcare today is already privatized, right? We have partners in the community. We do have TRICARE. We do have programs which utilize our existing non-VA healthcare systems where needed and, under appropriate arrangements. So I support all of that. I'm talking about a bigger picture. I'm happy to hear about that you're happy with the Akaka Clinic. It was a major investment. I and other people fought pretty hard for that clinic. It had its trials and travails, which I won't get into, that we had to kind of get Congress involved in to get her done. But it was beautiful when it opened, and I've been back a couple of times just to check in.
Plenty of parking.
Okay, and plenty of parking. And one of the reasons we did that obviously was to take pressure off of Tripler. I think that's working. But again, I defer to all of you.
Hi, I'm Fred Chang. I'm a Air Force Army veteran. Want to know why Congress is being paid while everybody else isn't.
Okay.
How's it feel about the attorney?
Okay, well, first of all, it is true that Congress, well, first of all, let me be really clear. All congressional staff are furloughed. They're not furloughed, but they're not being paid. So when you talk about Congress, all staff is not being paid. It's up to individual offices whether you deem your office essential or whether you furlough them, but they're not being paid. In my case, all of my office is essential because I need my office to be helping me through a shutdown. It is true that individual members of Congress are not currently subject to the same restriction on federal employment as other federal employees are. So they could be paid, but it's our individual decision whether we are paid. In my case, I've suspended my pay. I don't fault any member of Congress who makes a different decision. Everybody has our needs. Everybody has our way of thinking about it. But that's how I've treated it. And I don't know how many members have or haven't done that.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Congressman Case and fellow veterans. I am Edu Cheetah, Army Vietnam veteran. I recently experienced a 90% cut in my disability compensation. And this was for a cancer-related ailment, which was treated, but not cured. My cancer is in remission, and it can recur anytime. And the VA made this cut without giving me a good explanation of why they cut my compensation by 90%. So I'm not asking you, for the answer, but I really need an answer from VA. They gave no explanation, despite me raising 9 points of why I should not have any reduction in my disability compensation. And a second item is, I hate to mention this name, but President Trump actually promised veterans, he made 5 big promises to veterans. One promise is ensuring veterans receive their full benefits without cuts. This is what he said, and yet, I'm receiving this 90% cut. So I'm not asking you to answer to these, but I do need answers, from VA as to why, they have made this 90% cut.
Thank you. Colonel. So this is a pretty good example of 2 things. I think the first thing is we are seeing more of these kinds of decisions in the Veterans Administration now. And whether that's more, a good faith increased scrutiny on certain things, which I would defend, or an indirect attempt to reduce overall funding for the veterans, which I would not defend. I can't really sift through it all right now. It's also a very good example of our constituent services, because you have come to our office with this issue you had and the need to at least have an explanation. And we are trying to get that answer for you and also to advocate for you. Like, why are you cutting this person's benefits precipitously by 90%? Why? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, okay, maybe there's a reason why we'd go down by 10 points, but 90, 80, I guess it is, in one fell swoop. I don't get that. So this is the kind of thing that we can help people with. And we're a little hampered right now, to be honest, because in the middle of a federal shutdown and with the general reduction in VA employees, who I think overall are down somewhere around 8 or 10% across the country, just because of the actions of this year in terms of offering people to leave and to try to reduce involuntarily. We're having a much harder time just getting answers out of the VA right now. So it has been frustrating, but please bring those things to us and we'll try to get you answers.
I've also heard that, veterans over 55 years of age, shouldn't experience any cuts. I'm 82 years old and I'm getting these cuts. So my life is really in a turmoil. I'm not sure where VA is going to go in supporting me. I have a lot of expenses, medical expenses, because I have to undergo a lot of testing and even MRIs, for the early detection of recurring cancer. I already had 9 visits since I was treated for my cancer.
Well, we're going to try to make sure the VA does, in fact, take care of you as we promised to do, fully take care of you. So that is the big picture. And sometimes we talk about policies and programs and funding and, disagreements and polarization in very kind of, non-human ways. And we forget that all of these have a direct impact on lives. On individual lives. And this is especially true, I think, with our veterans who, again, we made promises. We should fulfill those, but we should not forget that there's a direct individual consequence to making the wrong decisions on real people who have served our country. So we will try to get you that answer, and we will try to defend.
Yeah, despite what we do for our country, VA doing something like this is what they call institutional betrayal.
Anybody else, by the way? I'm happy to go back to you. But
Yeah, just a comment.
Okay.
I think it would be beneficial to the whole country if when Congress, when
closer, please.
when Congress passes a bill, it would really be nice if members of Congress had to experience the same impact from that bill as the people in the country. The fact that usually there's always a clause in there that says, and this is especially true now that we're talking about medical care, because the members of Congress have a totally different system than the people. If members of Congress had to experience the impacts of whatever the bill or law that they pass, I think they'd pay closer attention to the impacts of what they really passed.
Thank you. It's always an issue for me as a member of Congress. I directly represent 720,000 of you. Like, my Kuleana is 720,000 citizens. I can't live in all of their shoes, right? I didn't have your life experience. I have a different, I live my own life. And I try to live my life as broadly as possible, and that's why I do these things. Because my job is to absorb your experience into my own and then translate it into action in Congress. That's why I depend on partnerships and talk stories and listening, so that I do try to have some sense. I'm not a veteran. I haven't been in combat. I haven't served in the military. How do I know what that's like? I have to interact, right? I have to at least try. And that's what I do try to do. So you're right. I'm not going to have everything in my head from 720,000 constituents, but I can at least try. In terms of your comment on members of Congress, okay, so first of all, I understand that frustration that on members kind of living in a bubble up there. My health care is under the Affordable Care Act. I don't have a separate members of Congress healthcare system. In fact, I'm mandated, by the way, the Affordable Care Act is Obamacare, right?
Yes.
And so that is when we passed that law, that was us saying, well, we're going to live by this too. So that's my health care. It's not different from your health care. I don't have veterans health care benefits. I probably wish I did, because it's probably better. But that's the reality. While we're at it, just to correct things, I pay into Social Security like everybody else. I don't really get any special breaks. I'm not out there on some, remote island. I am in my bubble, and that I worry about. I always worry about being in that bubble where I'm not connecting. other than that, I think I live fairly similarly to everybody else. So I feel the same stresses and strains on budgets and economies and healthcare and taking care of parents and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So there's just a lot of misinformation out there right now. There's this thing that's been running around for decades now. Just bugs the hell out of me. And it basically, what it basically says is, did you know that members of Congress earn full retirement benefits after serving for 1 month in Congress? That's not true at all. We have a retirement system. I pay into it, and I don't vest into it for a certain period of time. I don't get $175,000, $74,000, which is what my salary is, immediately. I never get that, actually. Even if I served in Congress for 100 years, I wouldn't get that. And yet, it's out there because people are so disillusioned with our government, which I, by the way, am also. They tend to believe misinformation like that, like, oh, look at those guys. But it's not true, and yet you have to kind of counter it. Anyway, I'm not complaining about it. I'm observing that there's a lot of misinformation. So don't believe everything that you hear and read, no matter what your news source is. Gentleman back there.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. My name is Ernest Aragon, and this is about the third time that I have attended these meetings. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I'm pensioned as a result of being exposed to Agent Orange. And I see here that the group is quite small compared to years past. But I'm more interested in the questions these gentlemen here that they held, because you were able to enter into some details. You know, you had so many issues to talk about, and unless we get into the detail, like a whiteboard, so that maybe we could organize our effort behind some issues, might be more effective in moving the ball forward. I think this would be very helpful.
Thank you.
As far as me personally, when it comes, it's basically we're talking about, you called it reduction in staff. I called it reduction in force. When I go up there to my VA service and medical care, I find that I have to be checked in by four people that always take my last 4 digits of my social security number in order that I get to the modules to see that doctor. That is, there's a lot of waste right there that this man was referring to. Right here at Tripler Hospital, when you talk about parking, I know a particular doctor there that says he's very concerned about that. He's in charge of hiring doctors, he told me. So we have a solution, but we have to deal with the details, sir. And it's difficult for you to handle and represent 720,000. So if this information is being recorded, like you said, and maybe you can invite those people all to write a letter in a particular issue, this man over there. That's a legitimate concern. It's difficult to be in your position, but you ask for it. You ask for it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sir, I assure you that I'm not looking for sympathy. So. No, I take all of your comments very constructively. I think it's always hard to kind of dive into detail in a meeting like this. That you need to cover a lot of different things, and I leave these questions for where perhaps people need a little bit more detail, which I try to do by the way, if everybody would please, if you didn't sign up out here on our sign up sheet, because I do send out reports to our veterans asking for feedback on various issues and reporting back to you, other than just a talk story every year like this. So please do that, and I'd love to follow up on that. Anyway, I take the rest of your comments directly. Sir.
Aloha, my name is Thomas Callahan. I was a Force Recon Marine in the beginning of the War on Terror. My question to you is kind of a dual question about AI when we were talking about your last comments about how easy it is to manipulate people. We used to talk about that in the military, as a system that we would use against our enemies. And obviously, we're already talking about our next war in China and all those things. and the race to beat our adversaries in AI in order for that to be part of keeping our empire of democracy going. The flip side of that is that it's also affecting our own populace in a great deal. And when I look in the room, it looks like I'm the youngest person at 45. Technology is like screaming by with young people, and they're very easily manipulated by AI and what they think we're talking about, your retirement package or something like that. So what is your concept on how we balance both our national security and what we need for technology and all those things with our general populace and their ability to use common sense and be able to delineate what is fact and what is fiction?
Yeah, it's a great question and a dilemma of our times that goes way beyond veterans or national security, doesn't it? Because I believe that AI, artificial intelligence, is transformative to our world in the same way that the advent of the computer was transformative. It's the same way that the Industrial Revolution was. I mean, I do believe this, and I don't think that any of us know exactly where this is going to go, or whether and how to make sure that it goes in the right directions. And we wrestle with this on a policy level in Congress. What is the appropriate level of regulation of AI? Europe has taken a shot at it. They have a full-on, regulatory approach to AI. Some of the folks in the United States criticize that as being too restrictive. They're not going to be able to allow AI to, do good and to curb the excesses. So AI is here to stay. We ain't going to put it back in the bottle. It's not like the folks in the Industrial Revolution who tried to destroy the machines because they were afraid of what would happen, right? We're not going to do that. And so how can we understand, predict, mold where AI goes to good while avoiding the dark side of AI, which I think is there also. You talked about defense, and you're in the defense space. We were talking earlier. You work in highly sensitive areas of defense. These are being transformed by AI. And whether it's the PRC of the United States or Russia, everybody's there. So we have to stay on top of AI in the defense space. Otherwise, our deterrence is going to go out the window. How can we use AI in a constructive way for deterrence administration? Can we use AI to actually assist us in understanding what is actually waste, fraud, and abuse and what is not? Of course we can. They have massive amounts of data there. They're doing it right now. But how do we do it in a way that is constructive, gives us the right answers, and by the way, is not manipulated along the way, or used in the wrong way? Because in the Veterans Administration, we're not only dealing with massive amounts of data, we're dealing with your personal information. And we don't want that to be manipulated for the wrong reasons. And so this dilemma is in every part of our world, every part of our government. And I ain't gonna lie to you, I don't think we have it right yet. And we need to get it much more right. I think the defense side of our world is farther along in this area, and you probably know this too. So it's completely unfinished business. But if we can't deny it. If we pretend that it's just going to go in the right direction, that's not what's going to happen. How do we get it right so that we harness the good part of AI without succumbing to the bad part? It's a terrible problem in terms of misinformation, but maybe it can also help, right? Because it's pretty easy to sift through what is misinformation and what is not if you have access to the right information. Yeah.
Sir, thank you very much for your service. I'm Gary Mobley from Waipahu. I'm Army retired infantry, including Vietnam. And my question is, you talked about a second punch bowl. Are you going to keep it here on Oahu, where most of the veterans are? And will it be Ned Shawnee?
So we're way early on this, and we have a, we have a statewide system of cemeteries and columbariums, right? So it's not like we're scarce, but Punchbowl is, of course, our central one. We have state cemeteries that are assisted with federal funding, which is a whole nother issue on this island as well as other islands. So we've got a pretty good network, but the National Cemetery of Punchbowl, a national cemetery and columbarium for our fallen, is especially invaluable and symbolic in many different ways. And we do need to replace it eventually. I don't think, I'm not prejudging what that result is, right? I want to just get going on the study. I don't think it's going to end up being the other islands because the mass of our population is here. And I think that's probably the reality of it. But that's just my opinion right now. I want to get into the discussion. And there was no way I would support it for only burials or columbariums. You need both, right? I mean, I think that's what people are owed. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Thank you, Congressman Case. Several years ago, I talked to you about the burn pits, and I'd like to thank you for your support and passage of the PACT Act because it has opened the doors for many, many veterans. And then secondly, I'd just like to make a comment. I too suffered from prostate cancer, and I had 100%. But after my operation and I got better, the VA chopped me down to 20%. And I think their policy is, even though you got cancer, what happens that if you get, better, they'll drop you down to whatever their rating schedule is. And so I too dropped from 100% to 20%. Then also on the vehicle thing, Augie Tolba just introduced a bill at the city council where veterans over 65 years old will be exempted from one vehicle tax. And it has passed the council, so it needs Mayor Blangiardi to pass that thing.
Okay. I'm sorry, I forgot to answer that part of your question, but that's what I would have said. There's efforts underway. I appreciate the disability comment. We just don't know what the answer is with the Colonel here, so we want to get an answer for him to start with.
Yeah, this question is kind of for the VA, but it's tied to funding. When, after 30 years and 9 deployments, I had a whole big box of medical records. And from the active duty into the VA system, there's nothing electronic yet. Everything was paper copies. And I don't know what the active duty is doing that can do a system that can transfer to the VA to help with that disability process. And then same thing once you get into the VA system, for it to be able to talk to the other care in the community where you're getting all this other work done, so they have that continuity of care with medical records.
This has been one of our biggest challenges in the VA healthcare system for a good 15 years now, at least 15 years. I say 15 only because the concept is nothing new, but the implementation of a master electronic records system that is fully transferable from active duty to VA, and then from VA to VA, so you have one system that has everybody's records in it across the country, which is exactly the right thing to do, has been an absolute nightmare to implement. And we have spent, I forget what the figure is, but an incredible amount of money trying to get this right. I think it's 10 billion or something like that. Consulting, implementing, failing, starting over again, testing. This was something I was very much involved with over 4 years on the Veterans Affairs Subcommittee on Appropriations. Still involved in it, especially on the defense side, because we haven't gotten the job done. And I'm trying to remember the last that I knew of this, but I think we were actually testing master electronic records system in Portland. Does anybody know this? Kind of in the Oregon VA sphere, so that we could try to roll it out again across the country. So totally agree with you, but it's totally unfinished business. Yeah. We're better off than we were. Yeah, more transferability than there used to be.
This is going to be hard for me. But I also had prostate cancer. I was cured 2 years ago.
All right.
And guess what? I'm still getting 100%.
Good.
And I want to know, I want to give it to him. What do I do? I don't need it. I feel confident. I'm 81, almost 82. You know, time's getting short. I feel fine. I'm healthy. And I asked the question when I got cleared. I went to VA and I said, okay, I don't have cancer anymore. Are you guys going to stop my 100%? And it says, not our problem. This is the answer I got from the NADA. So I'm drawing it. I'm happy to have it. I haven't touched a penny of it. It's in my savings, and it's a lot of money. A lot of money.
First of all, I'm happy that you're cured. Second, I'm not exactly sure how to answer the question.
It's not a question.
Can we turn that camera off? I think that's your call, sir. And to be honest, that would be an appropriate question for oversight by Congress in a generic way. Like why is that? Just to be honest about it. I'll leave it there. Yes, sir.
I'm Jim Boland. I'm a Korean Vietnam veteran.
A little closer to your mouth.
I currently am drawing full 100%. How they arrived at that, I don't know exactly. 12 years ago, I had prostate cancer. We cured that immediately by taking the prostate out, which renders me sexless and eventually I'm wearing diapers full time. But I'm 95 years old. I haven't got very much more to go. The end is much closer than the beginning. Like our friend here, how many veterans like us are out there who some asshole can our records and say, well, he doesn't have cancer anymore. Well, we can eliminate that. I draw the combat-related special compensation. I don't know if he draws that or not. That's non-taxable. And I'm very comfortable with the money that I receive each month. But if I were suddenly to lose half of that, I would have to go back and rely on my savings, which I'm confident will carry me through if I have to end up in a nursing home on a long-term basis. How many veterans like us are out there that have, somebody can make an arbitrary decision, like obviously his was an arbitrary decision.
Yeah, closer.
And we're out in the cold all of a sudden.
Right. I don't know the answer to your.
Yeah.
I hear your observation, and I'm happy that you're cured. I think I'd have to. I guess what I'm trying to do is absorb this, and okay, there's one part that is insufficiently compensated, another part that is fully compensated and afraid to have it taken away from. I think.
Yeah, they can knock that thing down. Whatever I'm drawing now.
Right. Not in
arbitrarily.
favor of people losing their compensation, by the way, just to be clear about this. I mean, you served, but I don't. What I'm gathering from this discussion is there's a lot of inconsistencies out there, and that shouldn't be the case. So, thank you.
I don't have any dependents. I live alone. Live on government quarters, as a matter of fact. So.
You live on base?
On base.
Oh, good. So are you part of the, I'm just curious, so are you part of the veterans surplus housing can go to our veterans community as well?
No, I go, well, I'm in Pearl Harbor Hickam.
Yeah.
And I was one of the first, I've been there 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that actually we should highlight a little bit because some of our on-base or privatized, for that matter, government military housing has surplus, and So if the active duty don't fill it up, then they have a waterfall that they go down in terms of like federal contractors, veterans. So you all ought to know that because it may work for some people.
I have 2 grandsons who are government employees, and they're eligible for that housing, but they didn't have it. But one of them has an employee that's in their office that's in the housing similar to what I am with the Hunt Corporation, runs the housing.
Mm-hmm.
They received a notice. They have 30 days to vacate. 30 days to get out.
Is that at Kalaloa?
I'm not sure of that one. I do know of a veteran that works over at West Lock area, the Pearl Peninsula.
Oh.
They were also notified. They got 30 days.
You mean Iroquois Point? Okay. Let me take that one. I don't know the answer to that. Okay, we're kind of winding down here. Yeah, we are winding down. Can I, sorry, go ahead.
Just one, since we're talking a lot about disabilities and all those things, I spent about a decade helping special operations people go through this process, not as a VSO or any of that stuff. And one of the things that comes up a lot, I like to think I'm a fixer. I want to see what the problem is and see if there's a solution. So I talked to a lot of the supervisors of the GS-13s and 14s in the VBA here. I would say as a congressman, one of the biggest problems, and we talk about AI may solve this, a rater only gets audited 6 times a month. That means if they rate 500 veterans, 6 of those is actually checked by a supervisor to make sure that person didn't have a personal bias, didn't follow the different M21 manual, all these things. So we just don't have enough oversight, and we can see it in the conversations here. We have 3 gentlemen of the Vietnam era that have 3 completely different ratings for the same prostate cancer.
Well, and again, you being in the national defense space, you understand that one of the things AI can do very well is detect anomalies. So it's like, well, why is this happening when the consistent is this, the constant is this? So that's one good way. Okay, I'm gonna do one last thing. Our great partners along the wall here. Do you guys have anything to add that you heard today that you might want to tell people that came up out of the questioning? Everybody good? Please see them if you need any help. Again, please, for the folks that are watching, again, please contact our partners. I'll hang here for a little while, but I'm going to end it on time just because that's what we're going to do in terms of both this and our live broadcast. To the folks that are, where is the camera? I want to say goodbye to them. Okay. Aloha. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, I want to conclude with deep gratitude for your service. I want to conclude with what I said at the beginning, which is gratitude is half of it and action is the other half, and my job is action. My job is to help you on the national level, help you with our individual or our Hawaii concerns, and help you with your individual concerns. case.house.gov. Take the material that we have here for you. Give us a call. Let us try to help you. I want to listen to you. I've heard a lot here today that I will absorb to take back to Washington if and when we ever open this government again, by the way, which I hope is very, very soon. But thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. Aloha. Have a great rest of your weekend.